Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this is Sunday morning. We got the Christmas hat on. Ole Miss got a huge New Year's Six bowl game surprise because everybody, including the school, thought they were going to the Citrus Bowl. So how you doing, Josh?
I'm good. And I'll be honest with you, Stephen, when Alabama won the game against Georgia, I started like mentally taking notes, and I didn't know what was going to happen, but I thought, we may not even go to the Citrus now. Like I thought maybe Georgia and Bama would both be left out, and that trickle down would send us even further down the line somehow. So my Christmas hat is that Christmas gift we were given the New Year's Six. Anyway, I'm excited. Hate it for Florida State, but somebody had to be left out, and they're the odd man out.
Yeah, I've said it on my show a couple of times over the past week. It's kind of like that Avengers Infinity War scene where Doctor Strange is doing all the scenarios. It's like, well, how many scenarios do we win? And he was just one. And the only way that Ole Miss was going to a New Year's Six bowl game was for Florida State to win the game and not go to the playoffs.
And I just didn't see that happening.
Yeah. I mean, how unlikely would that have been? So if you're looking for beneficiaries of all of this has happened, other than Alabama getting into the playoffs, it's probably Ole Miss going to the Peach Bowl, the other beneficiary from Florida State not making the playoffs. And I've said on multiple shows this week, I think the committee got it right. I do feel terrible for the Florida State players.
Yeah, agreed. I do think so too. I think Ole Miss, and of course, I mean, here we are on an Ole Miss show, but definitely deserved to go to a New Year's Six game, whatever it may be. Peach is great. Penn State's a great opponent. Resumes are very similar. Different styles of leagues and play. From what I can tell, I didn't watch a ton of their football, but just from what I generally know about the Big Ten, they don't quite run it up like we do in the SEC. They run it just slow and methodically throughout the game and try to stretch it out. So I think I heard you say at some point that their leading tackler had like 64 tackles or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 54 tackles.
54. Even less.
Yeah.
So we'll see if Ole Miss is able to get this hurry up going and we're able to run 70, 80 plays.
Are you planning on going to the game?
I am not. Not going to go. So I since I went to Orlando recently, that'll be my trip.
Well, for people that are planning on going to this football game, I know this is Sunday morning. Go listen to Brad Logan's podcast, the Believe in Ole Miss podcast, because he talked to the head of the Peach Bowl for this game. Ole Miss was allotted 13,000 tickets for the game. They've already in 2 days sold over 8,000 through the school.
Wow.
So this is probably going to be a secondary market type game if you want to go to the game. Now, they also expanded seats are in it. They are expecting a sellout. Let's see, I'm trying to look at different stuff. They're expecting a sellout for the game. They expanded out the way the Mercedes-Benz Stadium goes. There's seats that are kind of retractable. Those are coming out for the game too. So it's going to be a full capacity Ole Miss game. They're anticipating a sellout. So if you're planning on waiting till closer to game time to get tickets, you're probably not going to be able to get an official ticket much more than a day or two from now. And by the time you listen to this podcast, it may already be sold out from the Ole Miss ticket allotment. So you're going to need to use the secondary market. Okay, I got good news for everybody there. I have a hookup. And just between me and you can go to the gametime.co or the Game Time app, put in promo code LOCKEDONCollege, and you'll get a $20 rebate off of the tickets. So you can actually save a little bit of money because if this game's sold out, tickets prices are going to go way up. I know everybody's trying to plan on Christmas and everything else. This is an opportunity to help you out. But listen to the Brad Logan podcast, and he's going to parrot everything that I just said. But you also, through that gametime.co thing, there's a way that you can hit the secondary market and save a little bit of money because This looks like it's going to be an expensive ticket.
Well, free plug. That's what my daughter brought a couple of friends to the Vanderbilt game. So my wife and I went on the Game Time app and got tickets to the Vanderbilt game this year through that app.
Okay, awesome. See, people helping people. That's what I'm here to do. So, what are your initial thoughts on the Penn State Nittany Lions?
I mean, if you look at it, I mean, 10-2 like we are, they won some games. Obviously with 10 wins. Again, a little different style. I know their defense is really good. And does that concern me a little bit? Because I feel like that probably means that I think they run the ball well too, if I'm looking at the stuff right, which means they probably have a good line on both sides. And that is problematic if we don't get healthy for sure. If we have some trouble with strong lines. However, Again, I haven't done a ton of homework on them, so I don't really know, but I'd be hard pressed to believe that they've played an offense like us this year or in a while. And I know they have James Franklin and then Manny Diaz as their DC. So I know they know it. I know they've seen it, but this group of players, I don't know if they faced it. And so obviously, I mean, if there's good on defense as their numbers say they are, they have some depth. They got some dudes. But we've played against dudes already, and we put up that A&M defense was salty across that front seven, and we put some numbers up against them. So, it'll be interesting to see what we can do. And I'm not sold on their offense. So I don't know if they can just line up and shove it down our throat or not, but I'm going to lean against they can't because we have Pete Golding, and I don't think they're elite offensively. I think they're good. I mean, obviously you don't win 10 games and you're be bad. Oh, well, I guess you can. Case in point, Iowa. But I don't think they're terrible in offense, but I just think Golding can dial something up. Now, again, between now and the bowl game, who all opts out and doesn't play and everything else, that could also make a huge difference. And
they lost Chop Robinson.
Yes, I know they've had at least one or two, right, that have already opted out. So, and pretty big names. I think he's one of their DNs, right, that makes a little racket and noise and causes some havoc. So that's fine with me if he wants to opt out. The other one can too. I think the other one has more sacks than him. So they both can opt out if they want to.
Yeah, it should be really interesting. And the flip side of that is, what do you want to see from Ole Miss in that bowl game?
Well, if they are as disruptive as the numbers say they are, if they're able to come at Dart and in the backfield and all those kinds of things, then what we saw against LSU. I mean, get the ball out quick, spread it around, a little misdirection. Utilize screens and short passes and that kind of stuff. But now recently, even though we haven't had the same type of game plan, and it's been frustrating a couple of times to watch, like the Mississippi State game was just hard to watch at times. Priestcorn has been a revelation. I mean, I think he's still running after that touchdown at Mississippi State. He was so open, and so that has been good. I think we'll continue to see that. I hope we continue to see that. And I think some of it, I've been back and forth on this. I think some of it, they run those plays and run those plays and run those plays, but they're setting that up. They're setting that up so that at some point during the game, he's so wide open that Dart has to make sure he just doesn't miss. Just don't miss him.
Yeah, really cool. By the way, we're recording this on Wednesday, and Walter Nolan just entered the transfer portal officially. So, I mean, that kind of got my attention for a second. What I would like to see from Ole Miss, like I said, I'm down with the LSU stuff. If that version of the offense shows up, Penn State can go home. It's all over. It doesn't matter how good they are. If that offense shows up, it's over. But if the offense that shows up against Mississippi State shows up, it's over the other way around. So there's a lot of scenarios that could happen either way. We're going to overreact to it post game in the most hilarious way, ridiculous way possible, but it is what it is. So, real quick before I get out of here, Chris Beard, 8-0.
Man, and I'll tell you what a game against Memphis. I know we talked about this year that there are several football games that if we don't have Pete Golding, or if the defense doesn't do what they did, even though they may not have been elite, they stepped up when they needed to, and we won several games we would not have won in years past. I think basketball teams past would have folded at least 3 times against Memphis, at least. And so, wow, what a win. And then we let the Mount hang around a little bit too much. But, they get what I think they said they had us in Georgia this year, 2 shots at SEC schools. So I'm sure they get up for that. And they came and brought their A game. And so we did well. We were the word was brought up earlier today with a group that I was in, resilient. They were a resilient bunch against Memphis. And I think they were resilient in just fighting off spurt after spurt after spurt from the Mount St. Mary's in the other night. So, it's really good stuff. And by the way, speaking of the portal, right, I think we got, I don't know if it's official or not, but Deion Smith, the receiver from Holmes. I spent 9 years at Holmes. Yeah. I saw him play this year. Where I'm at, Northwest, was Holmes' homecoming this year. And at that point in the season, Northwest had their back against the wall. They had to basically win out. Every week was a playoff week just to get to the playoffs. And so we went down to Holmes. I went down there, saw it. He went, I think, 13 for 213 and 2 touchdowns, or 231. He just went off. And Northwest did win the game, but he almost single-handedly beat us. And so, and I think somebody said, one of the sports information guys says, I just always look for the guy with different color gloves and shoes or whatever. He said, because they're like the one. He goes, and he had blue gloves on or something. He's just, and Holmes is like a deep red and gray and black, kind of thing. So he just had his own gloves on. So he knew. He said, I knew right away when I looked at him, that was their star. And he played like it that day that we were there for sure. That was an afternoon game, actually. They did a 3 p.m. Thursday kickoff. Look at that, here in the great state of Mississippi.
Yeah, it should be kind of interesting, the transfer portal. By now, I don't want to get too far into the weeds on the player, because they could announce, and this thing isn't going to air for 4 days. So there's so much water that can flow under that bridge. But I am pretty excited about Deion Smith and what the wide receiver room is positioned to look like, because I love Dayton Wade as a player. He's one of my favorite players on this team. The wide receiver room is different with Deion Smith and Trey Harris as opposed to Dayton Wade and Trey Harris.
Oh yeah, I mean, just a different animal altogether.
Yeah, and like I said, I have it on fairly good authority right now that Trey Harris is about 70% coming back to school, and if he comes back, I think he's the best wide receiver this year in the SEC. And his injury situation kind of slowed him down. Next year, Malik Neighbors, the guy that would be able you could make an argument on, is going to be gone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're going to have Trey Harris and you're going to have Deion Smith and you have Quinshawn. This skill unit is going to be better than any unit that Ole Miss has ever had, period. Yeah. It's going to be freakishly good.
It warms my heart to think Trey Harris may be back.
Yeah. And I'm just waiting. I keep hearing 70%. I want to get that to 100. I want that.
That's right.
I want that to be a done deal. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Anyway, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Joshua Guest joins us every week like he always does. Thank you very much, buddy.
That's right. Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy.